Hi,
Hi, Dean.
here is the beginning of a theme that I think is going to take us through a while. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get through it, and I don't mean how long today. I mean how many days of these sessions we're going to do.
Awesome.
But uh, we're talking today about creativity. By the way, could I possibly be any more monotone than I was opening up that thing? You would not know I've had 3 cups of
I
coffee already this morning.
think we were talking about creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the issue I have with and and I do honestly believe, honestly and sincerely, everyone is creative and everyone has an opportunity to apply way more creative thinking than they do today.
I do too.
And we've actually touched on this many times over the past month or so that we've been doing this. So we've touched on concepts like the second right answer and asking fundamental questions that either no one has ever asked or just as useful and obvious and sometimes much more useful, asking questions that people have stopped asking to see
Hmm.
if the assumptions still work. They usually don't. And how we and everyone outsources a lot of the thinking and a lot of the creativity or boredom in their life, either to get rid of it or just because they can't do it, or obviously none of us can do all the thinking and all the, you know, uh, type
It's
of
really
analysis and
impossible
stuff
to
that
do
we need to
everything.
do in our modern life. There's too much
Yeah.
stuff going on,
Yeah.
right? But the challenge for digging into creativity and helping yourself become better at it is, in my experience, and I've been reading everything I could ever find on creativity since I was like a really young teenager.
Mm.
It is the longest lasting special interest that I have. And most of the advice in my experience comes down to two problems. It encounters two problems for someone who's trying to learn and become better. The first problem is that it becomes very formulaic. It's like, oh, here's an exercise, and you just go through this exercise, and out pops something, hopefully an idea. But it's
Right.
very formulaic, and sort of it really puts a lot of guardrails around your thinking, and then
Mhm.
the flip side of that is the advice is so personal, and this often I find comes from advice given by people who are like artists or professional artists or
Right.
do something more esoteric than most of us do in a corporate job or a small business, is that it's so personal and internal to them that it either wouldn't work for you or they can't describe it in a way that even makes it clear what they're doing because it's a very internalized process for them.
Hmm.
And
And I'm glad you brought up this conversation today because, like, I don't know about you, but in general, I don't really think of myself as a very creative person. Like, I don't draw. I don't particularly write great. I've gotten good at it, but I'm not particularly like a creative writer. I'm not great at design things that you typically think of creative.
right.
And I had to almost like re-explore, like, where am I creative though? So I'm very creative at putting complex things together in unusual ways. I'm very creative at designing things, or conceptually, like very engineering design oriented. So, have you ever kind of like gone through that yourself? Like, where am I creative? Like, what's my creative?
Here's my answer when people
Yeah,
say that or ask me
yeah,
that.
just
I
curious.
say a reliable predictor for me and everyone that I've sort of meant conversationally walked through this is whatever you whatever you find your mind has started thinking about on Saturday morning, that's probably the place where your creative energies are going to go.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's Saturday morning, and I mean Saturday morning literally, really, or Sunday morning, but that's the time when the main work week is over. You've you're not being bombarded with calls or emails or requests for stuff.
Hmm.
At least a lot of people aren't. And you're making your coffee or you're taking your dog for a walk or you're just having a nice breakfast or whatever, and your mind will start popping up into your consciousness like, well, how about if we tried that thing, or remember
Yep.
this like exercise we're doing, or remember this problem that we were looking at solving. Like wherever, whatever comes to your mind in that sort of more relaxed, laid back state, that's where your creative aptitude
Lies.
wants to go and lies.
Hmm.
And so that's, I think, if you just pay attention to your thoughts for a couple of Saturday mornings, you will find out that, okay, I really don't care about becoming a better writer or a more persuasive or flowered or
Yeah.
whatever writer, but it really bugs me that I haven't figured out a way to make the lawnmower do X when all the parts and pieces are there, the functionality is there.
Right.
Why hasn't anyone ever like made a lawnmower that does X? Or I wonder if someone's figured that out. Let's go on to Google or YouTube and
That would be
see
me.
if someone solved the problem, right?
Yeah, that would be my
Yeah.
creative
So I
arena.
tell people to just pay attention to what they're thinking about when they're
Yeah,
not trying to think about much on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And you do that a couple of times, and your brain will move you to where it needs you to be.
that's good advice because I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, they think they're not creative, and it's absolutely
Yeah,
not true. Like every human being who manages to survive in life is
we're all
creative
creative
in some way
somewhere.
or another.
Exactly.
Right? Everyone tries to optimize stuff. Everyone tries to put a little like trick or system in place. Who hasn't like put something, an envelope or a box or something next to the door where they leave for work every morning to make sure they don't forget it? That's a creative insight right there,
That's for sure.
right? All that kind of stuff. So the goal over the next however many times we do this is to start providing advice and a framework
Okay.
for your own creativity that is not formulaic, because I'm not a fan of that, and is not internal to John or internal to Dean and hard to, use yourself.
Okay.
So let's talk about some examples that we've gone over the last few weeks and then move into today. We're going to talk about, examples that have come up maybe because you don't know what's going to spark something in someone else, right? And then I
Right.
want to spend this short amount of time talking about tools because the right tools, and I don't mean frameworks or lists of questions or something formulaic. I mean just tools that you put yourself into and don't require you to like learn anything or do anything different. Okay? So we talked about a couple of weeks back a question that everyone had stopped asking, and once I asked it, everyone had the same answer, but the same answer clearly was not true. And that question, like we've had, I think, a few of those, but one of them was, why do people register and attend live events online? Why do they register and attend webinars? Like, really, why do they do it? They can't all be there just because your information is so great that they can't wait to, get on a
Yeah,
get
that's
on
not
a
it.
restrictive, half boring kind of call and get at it, right?
Hmm.
And that's where I walked through all the various that question led to digging into all the reasons people attend and how essentially you end up with multiple audiences for the same event,
Right.
each expecting something different.
Yeah, I often think webinars are kind of like courses. People will take an offline course
Yeah.
or online course even as a filler.
Yeah.
It's they think they're going to learn more by osmosis, and
Right.
maybe not even really
Then by
attend the
doing.
class. Plan
Yeah.
on seeing the replay,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
yeah.
There is also a move for what's now called cohort based classes, right?
Hmm.
So where you go through, it's all sort of doled out to you live, and there may be videos, but you don't know about the exercise for that day until you've done the
You're
last
there.
one, and everyone does it at the same time, and there's built-in discussion and that kind of stuff. I've had mixed results, and by mixed I mean poor results. With very,
Yeah.
very expensive cohort courses, and then courses that were a lot less expensive, but seemed like so much of a waste that they felt even more expensive than the expensive one.
Mm,
So, but I mean, but again, that's a great example of someone saw a problem of the massive abandonment rate of online courses, especially
yes.
the long ones, and said there's got to be a way to convey the same information, but build in engagement from the beginning. And so cohort-based courses are like an option to that.
Hmm.
Or someone asked the question, why do people sign up for and buy online courses and then not do them? And that took them into it. So
Mm,
I mean, that's a great example. You ask a question that no one's asking or that no one is asking anymore.
That's a question
And
I
you
ask
go
all the
back and
time.
you test the assumptions, and you'll
Sure.
always find out that it's broken. And then what something temporary became permanent. That's like a phrase in my life, right?
Right.
What's temporary becomes permanent unless you pay attention to why you did it in the first place.
Hmm.
Okay, so that was one. The second one was we talked about the second right answer, and it's simply accepting the idea that there is always a second right answer. And not, I don't mean an alternative right answer, and I don't mean the opposite of the right answer also possibly being a good, right answer as well. I mean that we all come up with, usually in a short amount of time, we all come up with the first right answer. It's usually not very well thought through. It's sort of like a first draft, but it's clearly correct. But if you step back, if you give yourself your time, if you just say, okay, that's the first right answer, I'm looking forward to hearing the second right answer from my own brain. And
Hmm.
then just, leave it. Sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it takes weeks. Sometimes it takes years. Unfortunately, you can't time your second right answer. But if you know and accept and just like there is a second right answer, then it will come to you. And it's always so much better and more insightful, more approached it from a right angle kind of answer than you could have thought of before. The second right answer is where some phrase you heard in a podcast 4 years ago, one sentence, now suddenly pops to the beginning, to the front of your consciousness, and you apply it to the problem you were just solving and say, yeah, like that's it. That's exactly, wow. Right. And you're like, good job, Dean. Not bad. And pat yourself on the shoulder. So there's always a second right answer. So asking questions that people have stopped asking,
Hmm.
accepting that there is and always is a second right answer, and you should try to move towards it. And then understanding that at some point you have to stop outsourcing so much of your thinking or so much of your boredom, for want of a better word, right?
Okay.
That we're all, not only are we all in this constant craving for crap to put into our brains and in front of our eyes and into our ears and distraction, but that even if we stop actively looking for distractions, the world fills in that vacuum with its own distractions anyway,
Hmm.
to the point where the only thing I've ever found that works is to forcibly bring on boredom. Just say, and I mean, it's on my calendar every day. There's a time to be bored. And yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, right? We used to suffer from not having enough to do or read or whatever. And I don't mean anyone, in the last 50 years, but prior to that. But now it's like, okay, I have to be bored. And I have this sort of playlist that someone made on either Spotify or YouTube, I forget what it is. And it's 24 hours long, but it basically just plays the same 10 songs over and over and over. There's no vocals. They're easy to ignore. You're only listening to the music for the first few minutes, and then okay, I'm so familiar with this that there's nothing for my brain to pay attention to. And then
Hmm.
your mind will just sort of wander around,
Wonder. Yeah.
right? And it will think about stuff. And if you're feeling really strongly about something, then the emotions are going to come up. It is not fun or comfortable, especially in the first few minutes. But
No.
it is so enormously valuable to disconnect from the 110% distraction machine that we all live in and just say half an hour or an hour, whatever like works best for you.
Yes.
42 and a half minutes. There's no set limit, whatever works for you. I'm just going to put on my headphones or my earpods, whatever. And I'm just going to like listen to that.
Zone out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny. When I first heard you say that, I said, time spent in boredom. I think you mean meditation.
No, definitely do not.
No, no.
No, meditation is actually
Similar.
purposeful. Boredom is not purposeful.
Okay.
No, it's not meditation. Meditation has all kinds of, I'm told, all kinds of benefits. That's not what this is.
Okay.
No, this is disconnecting. This is not taking your phone into the toilet. This is
Yeah.
understanding that stuff is being shoved into your brain consciously and without your decision to ever let it in. So I don't
Gotcha.
want to call that unconsciously, but all day long, every day.
Okay.
To the point where we're so afraid of even a little bit of boredom that we will take our phone into the toilet. Right? We can't stand having 3 minutes of silence while we make a cup of coffee.
Right.
And I'm no different than anyone else along those lines.
Hmm.
So what you do is the point of the boredom is to let your brain process all the stuff in a period that's not sleeping or dreaming,
Right.
but where you're still awake and it's kind of the middle of the day. It makes even doing it for just 5 days is such an enormous change in the quality of your thinking. If you just stop all the inputs, and in my case, some people like silence. Some people like to be in a noisy environment but not do anything. It reminds me of that meme that was going around a few years ago. It's just text, and it says, "This morning I saw someone in Starbucks sitting at a table drinking a coffee. No phone, no tablet, no laptop, just sitting there like a
Mm.
psychopath."
Like a psychopath.
Because it's so unusual for us to just appreciate that someone might want to enjoy the taste of the coffee, maybe enjoy the sounds of coffee shops, but
Yeah.
not actively be shoving more stuff into their brain.
Yeah. Be
I
actively
love
doing
that
something.
line, like a psychopath. That's good humor, by the way.
That is good humor.
And so just that simple decision, I'm going to take half an hour and I'm going to turn on this kind of, playlist, in my case, that I've heard over and over and over and over again, and which plays over and over and over again without me doing anything. And here's the thing about the boredom. It doesn't last very long. The boredom goes away
Yeah.
because once your brain, sort of the front of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, your conscious part, understands that like there is no new or interesting information coming in, it starts pulling out all the stuff that it's got in sort of short-term memory and handling it, and some of
Mhm.
the longer-term memory stuff. I had a friend once, and I said, one of the things that works really well if you want to do this is go for a nice walk around your neighborhood, but don't bring any headphones. You can bring your phone in case someone needs to reach you, but don't bring any headphones. And they said, that sounds like, a really quiet walk. I say, it is not. It is the noisiest walk you'll ever go on.
Oh yeah. I
Because
do
within
that
a
all
few
the time.
minutes, your brain is going to flood up all the stuff that it's been sort of shoving down to make room for all the other crap that's
Everything coming in right now. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is the
Yeah.
noisiest walk of your life if you go take a walk with no headphones.
So I'm glad you clarified that because I was
Yeah,
going, so
it's not
what's the
meditation.
difference here? I
No, not at all.
understand the subtle difference. Yep.
No. And then the last part we will go into today is about capture.
Okay.
We don't realize how many good thoughts and ideas we all have every day, all day.
Oh yeah, tons.
And the traditional advice was you should always have like a little notebook and a little pencil so you could write stuff down. And I thought that was very impractical, especially since everybody has a phone. Now,
Yeah.
it's been a long time since I've had to mess around with the Android. Here's my iPhone, uh, the Android operating system, but the Apple ecosystem works really well for this, and I'm sure Android does too. But iPhones and all of their Apple devices now come with an app called Shortcuts. It's built into the operating system. You have it even if you've never noticed it. And people can write shortcuts. And if anyone wants the one that I'm using or the one that I created, just let me know, and I'll email me Dean at way or let's put up. I think we have something here where we can do that, right?
Yeah, it's just Dean at
Um,
waycreative.com.
yeah, there it is.
There
Dean
it is.
I'll just send it to you, right? And you click the link. Your phone says, are you sure you want to import it? You import it, you're done.
Yeah.
And what mine does, I have two. I have hundreds of these written, but I only really use two every day. One of them will listen to me, transcribe it into text, and then take that text and it will append it to a note, almost like a log that I use. Do you need to take that? It's okay. All right, he's going to go on mute for a second. So what it does is it just listens to me. It talks while I talk. Then it turns it into text, and then it writes it along with a little date and timestamp to this sort of, you can think of it as a log file, right? It's just this note, use any kind of note program that you want to use. You can use Apple Notes, something like that. I use one called Drafts, which is fantastic. And John, I got to tell you about Drafts because it's crazy useful.
I like it.
And what it does is it takes that text, makes a little timestamp, puts it into Drafts. Now, I don't think about it. I mean, it's so fast. I click something, I talk, blah, blah, blah. It handles all the other stuff for me and writing it and opening the Drafts app and all that stuff. And I just have it on my calendar twice a week, about half an hour. I have two little times of the week called Design the Week. And one of the tasks that I do during Design the Week, I open up this log file. Every time I've ever done it, and I do it every 2 or 3 days, every time I see something that is actually a really good idea or a good thought, and I had completely forgotten that I had it.
Mm.
Every single time. I mean, at this point, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of entries in this thing, right? And that's just from the last 12 months. But being able to just click and talk or just type, if I use the other one, it doesn't matter which, and then having it written into drafts, and another app I use for backup for that, so that it's there. And then I can just go back. I never need to worry about forgetting something. Or any insight or thought that I had, I'm listening to a book, say, or, driving around or anything. And say, oh, yeah, that's great. And I just make a quick note, and then I don't have to think about it anymore. Like, get it out of your head into a system you trust. It's very GTD, Mr. Allen kind of thing, if you're
Okay.
familiar with that whole productivity, group. And then you just get it out of your head, and then you've got it, and you go back and you look at it, and you will be constantly amazed at how many good ideas and thoughts you have, that because before you never had any way to reliably capture them, you
Yeah.
thought you were a very creative person. It turns out you're coming up with stuff all the time. You just didn't capture it. Now I got to
Just
tell you about
boredom.
drafts, by the way, in case
Okay.
drafts is free for either Mac or iPads or iPhone. It's free as long as you don't require synchronization. Let's say if you have drafts on one device and then you have drafts on another device, you have to pay, and it's very cheap. It's $20 a year to do the synchronization in the background. But if you just want to keep it all on one device, you just want everything on your phone all the time, that's fine. It doesn't even cost anything. Drafts, genius. And I tell you, the first time I downloaded Drafts and tried to give it a try for a few days, it's like, this is the dumbest app ever. Like, as far as note taking goes, it's really bare. It doesn't have much functionality. It's not much you can do with it. You can't even like do formatting stuff. It's written in Markdown language, and if you're not used to writing in Markdown language,
Mm.
and Markdown is just like formatting and stuff. You put in parentheses or whatever, and then if you ever export it out, it looks nicer. But the beauty of drafts is this: whenever you have an idea, let's say that you have an idea for something to write down, something to do, something to say, there is a tiny bit of mental friction between you having the thought in your head and you having to decide which app it needs to go to.
Mm.
Right? Did I mean to text this? Should it be an email at some point? Is it part of an article I'm going to write? Is it just an idea I need to save? Whatever, right? There's that tiny bit of friction. And in that tiny bit of friction, the idea can disappear. So the guys behind Draft, and I'm sure they had the same problems at some point. So the Draft, it opens up into a new draft, new document, new note, blank every time you open the application. And they build themselves as drafts is where text starts. So the beauty of drafts is it opens up, the cursor's blank, and you can just start typing.
Hmm.
And then there is a huge list of places that you can send that text, that what you just wrote down, to. You want to send it to as a text. You want to send it to an email. You want to save it to another app. You want to send it to Word on your phone. Whatever you want to do with it, there's a huge and all the apps you think of, whatever. If you're using OmniFocus or Things or Todoist on productivity type stuff, you want to put it into a calendar and automatically make it into like a calendar entry, whatever. Uh, it goes everywhere. It has thousands, certainly hundreds. I have dozens installed on all of my machines. So once I get the text down and there's no friction, because I know it always goes into it always goes into drafts. Open up drafts, get it in there. And then once it's in drafts, I can send it or remake it into whatever I want just by clicking one thing, and it happens automatically. It's genius. It's certainly worth not paying anything for, and it's certainly worth paying $20 so you have it on all your machines.
Oh yeah.
It only works in the Apple ecosystem though. So iPads,
Okay.
Macs, phones, iPod touches. Do they still make iPod touches? I
I don't
think they
think they
still
make
make
them
them.
anymore.
I think they still sell them, but they haven't
Maybe
updated them
still
in a long time.
sell them, but I don't think they've updated them.
But yeah, drafts just removing that friction of where like there's nothing worse than like, oh, that's a great idea. And then you finally, oh yeah, I should put that in the Apple Notes app. And you open it up and it's like, crap, what was it? It's gone.
Yeah, by the time you're there, you
Right?
forget.
It's like, I hate
Right.
that so much. Drafts completely eliminates just that second or a few seconds of friction and makes such a difference. But
Sure.
the shortcut that I made basically does the same thing, except I don't even have to open drafts. It'll open drafts for me, find the note that the log that I put everything in, and then append it with a timestamp at the end of it. So I can just go back whenever I want and scroll through and find, and look at, or just scroll to the end and see the latest stuff.
We should use that for that stuff we're going to talk about tomorrow
Yeah, capture is
or Thursday.
so important. You need to get a capture system that works for you. And like anyone who emails me, I'll just send you a link to the shortcut that I use based on drafts.
Hmm.
It's so important to just have an instant, never need to think about it, brain dead capture method, and then go. And I like having it all. Some people say, well, you can make quick notes or you can make voice memos or whatever, and that's fine. But I like it converted into text, and I like it all in one document that I can just, peruse through whenever I want and be surprised that I forgot something that was such a good idea and obviously was important to me in the moment.
Right. I mean, I use a lot of other things like Notion and Evernote and those
Yeah,
types
but
of
those are
things.
places where something's going to live. And
Yes.
to me, it doesn't matter where it's going to live. It
Yep.
needs to live somewhere.
It needs to
The
start
problem
someplace.
is that little step in between where you capture it, where it goes from your brain to somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm like 99% sure that there's an option for Notion in drafts. So you can like send something to Notion
Ah.
once you get in there. Anything you can think of that works in the Apple ecosystem, it almost certainly has a what's called an action in drafts that either they provide or someone else wrote and uploaded so that everyone else can
Mm.
use it.
Yeah, I think there is. I keep wanting to think that Dropbox has some kind of a drafts mechanism as well.
Yeah, it's possible,
I
but
think.
I really, really like it.
Hmm.
It's just the fastest way to get something out of your head and into text so that you can, put it somewhere where it belongs without ever forgetting it because you had to make a decision about where it was going to go.
Yeah.
Just throw it into drafts, and then from drafts, you can send it anywhere instantly.
Yeah. Put it in any file, order it anyway, tag it
Yeah.
any way you want, all of that after the fact.
Yeah. So
Nice.
over the next few days, I think maybe a couple weeks, we're going to talk about in greater detail. We're going to go narrower and wider
Okay.
about sort of the framework and understanding of how your creativity will work on a day-to-day basis. And then we'll go into even more tools
I
for
like it.
what to use and how to use it, right? Because I'm always trying the new tools, right? Looking for the perfect tool, which probably never exists. But we get closer and closer. We'll talk about MindNote and XMind. We'll talk about Clover, which not many people seem to know about, but is a fantastic
Hmm.
brainstorming and creativity tool. Clover is
Yeah, that's
amazing.
one I'm
Talk
not
about
familiar with.
My Mind. We'll
Yeah.
talk about, Mem. There's just so many of them.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
All right. Do we have anything else to talk
Not
about today?
really. No, not that I can think of.
Omnifocus is not a bad word. Omnifocus is like an incredible tool as long as you're willing to put in the time up front to learn it. And
You
yes,
said Clover. What?
yeah, Clover.
Yeah, I had never heard of Clover until you just
Yeah.
mentioned it.
Clover's relatively new and it's not expensive. I think it's like $5 a month or
That's not
80 bucks a year. And
Is it
what Clover, you
well,
can think of Clover as, Clover is both a Mac app and a web app. And I don't know if there's a Windows version.
okay,
There very well might be.
okay.
But Clover provides both types of sort of creativity tool at once as far as like recording. And if you're the kind of person, some people think through moving, right? They think through pacing, they think through walking, right? And
Mhm.
then some people think through writing, some people think through drawing, some people think through doodling, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Clover, except for the walking part, Clover lets you do all of them. It has, you just create something new and you can actually like just start writing. It's got a full blown editor and you can write stuff. You can also mind map in it. You can free draw on it. It's got everything, but it's very simple, a very simple interface. There's almost no learning curve to it. So they've done a
nice.
very good job on the design for Clover.
I'll
Yeah.
have to check that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it. I think this is going to be a fun topic for the next few weeks to sort of dig into how you and I and the people in the comments and everyone else on planet Earth can improve their own creativity in the way that works for them without us being formulaic or so internal that that actually won't work for them because it would only work for that an individual like you or me.
Awesome. And hey, all of you listening, if you have any ideas on things that you'd like to ask us about creativity, ask in the comments. We can talk about them next time.
Put them in the comments, send an email. Either way, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, John. Talk to you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
Steve. See
Bye.
you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.